Okay, so again, welcome to an introduction to targets for R. To introduce Tracey, she is a senior project scientist and data scientist at the Environmental Markets Lab at UCSB, who investigates the environmental, economic, and social implications of market and policy interventions. Her research is focused on sustainable natural resource management, climate resiliency, and environmental equity. And like many of you that are probably in this room, Tracey is a graduate of the Bren School here at UCSB, where she specialized in economics and politics of the environment. So just a quick rundown of the schedule for today. We're just finishing up our welcome now. I'm going to pass it off to Tracey for a brief presentation, kind of introducing us to the targets package. We're then going to move on and Tracey's going to give us a demo. And then we're going to break out into groups and work on applying the targets package kind of in small groups. And then we'll come back all together and kind of share out what we did and then wrap up. If there aren't any questions off the bat, I can pass this off to Tracey. Oh, wait, no, there's one more thing. I forgot. So we shared out a GitHub repository to fork and clone, and we wanted to do a really quick demo of how to do that, just in case not everyone did it. And then you also may have gotten a message from me about an hour ago about needing to sync your fork if you had already forked it. And so I'm just going to show you how to do that really quickly. So let me get out of here. Okay. Could somebody put this link in the chat if it's not already, Sam or Camila? Okay, so I guess I'll wait a moment. Sweet, thank you. So to fork this repo, once you navigate to it, you're going to hit this fork button. And then all you need to do is hit create fork. It's not going to let me proceed with this because I've already forked it. But essentially, once you hit create fork, it will move you right to your fork on your GitHub account. And so for me, that looks like this. What I'll do then to clone it to my local computer is to hit this green code button, and there's a drop-down arrow. And then you can hit this kind of image, this little thing that basically copies that link to your clipboard. And then I think I have to reshare my screen to go to R. I'm a Zoom noob. Okay, hopefully you can see my R now. Then you're going to go to the top right and hit where it says project and say new project. And then you're going to hit version control where it's saying check out a project from a version control repository. You'll hit git and then paste that URL that we copied to the clipboard. And if you press tab, it should autocomplete that next field. And then all you do is hit create project. Well, I already did this, so it gave me an error, but it should work on your end. Okay. Going back to my GitHub, if you had already forked the repo, you may, yesterday, you may see this message at the top that says this branch is whatever number of commits behind Tracey's repo, and we want ours to be synced up with that. So what you would do is just hit this sync fork button and press this green button, update branch. And it just magically makes our branches the same. And then I would need to go back to GitHub and just pull those changes to my repository. I can quickly go back to R. Sorry, I'm very bad at Zoom apparently. Okay. So I'm going to open my project that I had already forked and cloned. And I can just go to this Git pane and press pull. And it brought all of Tracey's changes to my local copy. Okay, definitely let me know if there's any questions on that front, but otherwise I can turn it over to Tracey.
Okay, thanks, Danielle. Yeah, please, if people have questions, do the hand raising thing. I think before we start, Danielle, I don't know if you mind launching a poll. I just wanted to do a quick poll to see what your guys' experience has been with targets or a target-like package. So go ahead and feel free to answer. Okay, am I the only one who hasn't participated? Okay, I think that's probably right. Okay, cool. Can I hit end poll? Okay, awesome. I don't know if I can. Why don't I start? So, share the results. Okay, can you guys see that? Okay, awesome. So, whoever you are that knows what you're doing, feel free to interrupt at any point and add clarifications and more information because I'm totally just learning for a project in the last few months. So I'm not an expert by any means, but I have been playing around with it. And I think it's a great tool that I wanted to share with everyone. So feel free to jump in. Okay. All right, now let's see if I know how to screen share. Okay. Can everyone see a browser with slides? Okay. Perfect. Okay, I'm gonna go in slideshow mode. I think I'm supposed to do this. Can everyone see a slideshow? Okay, awesome. I hope you guys enjoyed the colorful slides that Danielle presented because there's not a lot of color on my slides. They're a little stale, but hopefully it's informative. So I'm Tracey Mangin. I'm a researcher at MLab. Super excited to be chatting with you guys today. And this is just hopefully going to be a painless introduction to the targets package for R. Wait, is it still in presentation mode?
It's not. You might need to share a different like desktop, maybe. That's better.
I guess it has to be. I guess I can't be outside of full screen. Okay.
If you want to share it the other way, it's fine too. We can see that.
Yeah, but now we can see the presentation mode. So
okay, awesome. So I'll leave it like this. Okay, it's just like my whole screen. Okay, so just really quickly, Danielle already kind of went over the agenda, but so we're gonna start with a presentation, give some background. Feel free to interrupt, reasonable econ style. I don't mind being interrupted with questions. Use your best judgment. Not full econ, not old school econ style, but very happy to take questions and comments, and if people have clarifications and corrections along the way, totally happy to do that. And then I have a little demo that's already kind of built in the repo that you guys forked that we'll kind of walk through together to try to like kind of orient you guys. And then with the time that we have left, I was thinking we could break out into groups and kind of try to implement what we've seen in groups. And I just want to say that there are a bunch of resources online. Like I pulled a lot of information from those resources. So like I thank you to those people who made those. I have the links to all the resources that I used at the end. So definitely check those out. And yeah, let's get started. So, okay. So perhaps some of you are familiar with this kind of workflow process with your projects. In a perfect world, you have some inputs, you import them into R, you clean and you process them as you need to, and then you perform an analysis, and then you summarize and visualize your outputs, and then you're done. You have a paper, it's published in Nature, and it's great. So my experience has been that it's a little bit more chaotic than that. And we are updating our inputs all the time. And we are changing, because our inputs are changing, we have to change how we clean, or we've like made discoveries that we have to change how we're processing the data. And then we are performing the analysis, but we're changing it like 1,000 times and adding a million more steps because that's what we do. And this whole thing's actually iterative, it's not linear. And then as we're doing that, we have to visualize and summarize and make our outputs. And at the end, I'm kind of like, are these right? I hope these are right. And hopefully none of you have had that feeling where you realize they're not quite right. That's not fun. So so that's where we so yes, we have these workflow challenges. So in addition to I think what I was getting at was a bit of this number 2, the reproducibility issue, but also just like long run times and pipelines really can create a situation where you're spending a lot of time running parts of the processes over and over again when you might not need to. And I just wanted, in terms of reproducibility, I wanted to show you something that I'm simultaneously like very proud of, but also is kind of horrific. But for a recent project that we had, the way that we basically documented our workflow is in this README, which has all of our data inputs. And for every single script, we say what goes into the script, what comes out of the script, and sort of what order it's supposed to work in. And this is helpful, but I actually don't know if someone could really use this to really reproduce what we did. So back in presentation mode. Okay, so enter the targets package for R. So it's a pipeline tool that's specifically designed for R. A pipeline tool coordinates the pieces of your analysis, so the different steps in your analysis. And an example of another pipeline tool is called Make. So this is like a Make-like tool for R. It keeps tracks of your entire workflow, automatically detects when functions or files change, and it will save time by only running steps or targets because of these changes in the files or the functions. It ensures that the pipeline is being run in the correct order and ensures reproducibility. So this is like a direct quote from one of the sources, so I want to give credit to that. When targets are up to date, this is evidence that the outputs match the code and the inputs. So that's great. So we can be a little bit more confident that we have trustworthy and reproducible results at the end. And then just as a note for anyone who's used the Drake package, the targets package is replacing the Drake package. Okay, so like what is a target? You can think of every single step in your pipeline as a target, whether that's like defining a variable, reading in data, cleaning, doing an analysis, summarizing information, saving a figure. Like every step could be thought of as a target. It looks and it feels a bit like a variable. So you define something by a name, but it stores the returned R object. So every target returns an R object in the project folder and not in the environment. It's very functions oriented. You'll see that when we dive into the code. And a target usually creates, analyzes, summarizes a data set or performs an analysis. A good is large enough that it will save some time if you don't need to run it because there aren't changes to it, but small enough that you can skip some when you make a change. They shouldn't modify your global environment, and they should return a single value or an R object, whether that's kind of like a value, a data table, a data frame, a figure, object. So just one thing. And I have like sample code here on the right. So you can see that I just have a pretty simple function here, clean data, that takes in this thing file, and it reads the file, it filters out the NA, and it creates a new column, and it returns this data thing. So that then if we want to create the target for it, we use this function called tar target, which is in the package. And oh, these are not quite aligned. So we have a name, which is the target name. Here it's data. And then a command, which is the R code to run for the target. So in this case, I'm running the function clean data on file. So here's some just like other examples. You can, for example, this first one here is just dividing a value to like max val equals 16. And this other example down here, it shows how you might write a CSV in the framework. So just basically like every step could be a target. Okay. So I'm gonna walk through this, get out of the presentation a little bit, but so setup is basically and within that project, you create a folder called R. And this is the folder where you'll be saving scripts of containing functions that you need for your analysis. And then targets is going to source these scripts basically. Add your input files if you're storing them in the project. You don't have to. So the project I'm working in, we don't store any inputs in our in the repo. So we don't do this step. And then once we just need to install the targets package. So code install.packages targets will install the CRAN version. And then we run use_targets and populate your repo, your project, with specific target related files and folders, including this _targets.r file, which runs your entire pipeline. And it's nice because it kind of sets it up for you. You set some, the one that I use mostly is just like which libraries I'll be using. And then you fill in list, which is in this _targets.r file with your targets. And I'll show this. So once you have your targets filled in, once you've like defined all those steps, there are some helpful functions for exploring your pipeline. What the first one is that I'll talk about is tar manifest, which helps check for obvious errors, and the output is a data frame of info about the targets in your pipeline. So up here in the top right, this is an example of what you would get out of running tar manifest in the repo that we're going to jump into soon. So you can see that we have each of these rows represent target, and then these, and we have the command here, and they are listed in sequential order of how they'll run. Tar visualizes your pipeline, and it's good practice to check, although I say that like the project I'm working in, the network is crazy at this point, complex, but it's good to start small anyway, okay, to your pipeline and make sure that it's making sense. You can see that the triangles are functions, circles are stem, or like I believe it's kind of like just like non-functions, data frames. The person who knows what they're doing, feel free to correct me here. Values, stuff like that. And you can see here in this example, I've taken a screenshot when everything was outdated. So it'll tell you once you start running it, you'll see when things are outdated and you'll see when things are up to date. And so then once you feel like you can run the pipeline, you simply have to run tar make, runs the whole thing for you. It runs the targets in the correct order, and it will only run targets that are out of date, which can save you a lot of time. When you run, it'll create a folder in your repo or your project that is called _targets. And this is where your outputs are going to get outputs and other information will get stored. So outputs are saved in _/object. So again, when you run this, it won't save anything it won't load anything into your environment. It's all going to just get saved in this folder, but you can access those things using these two functions, tar read and tar load. So tar read will name of the object will print the output, and tar load will actually load it into your environment. Okay, so making changes. So when you are rerunning it, target when making changes, if you want to update any inputs that you're putting in there, any values you've defined, or any functions, you do those changes and save. And then when you can run tar viz network again, and it will identify which parts are out to date. So, oops, sorry. So you can see in this example, the change made has affected this heat map plot that I've created. So but everything else is up to date. And so when you go to rerun it, targets is not going to rerun that part. Another function is tar outdated, which will just return the names of targets that are outdated. Okay, so that's like maybe of targets. This is one that's like not as fun or intuitive, is debugging. So the targets framework is not interactive. So like I said, things are not loaded into the environment, so you don't really have access to them. And all the layering that makes targets really good for reproducibility and scaling make it harder for debug. So that I think is like the trickiest part. So if you have an error, you can run, when you run tar make, it will return an error message. These messages, I found they sometimes are informative and they can help you quickly find where the error is in your functions or your pipeline. But sometimes it's not as obvious. You can run working parts of your pipeline if you set tar option set error equals null. I mean, you don't have to remember this, but it's here if you want to look it up, and it will basically run everything, turn null for everything that's not working. When you do this, it's like important to remember that your outputs are like not correct, but it allows you to look at things more closely, or it's a little bit more tangible. Okay, so these are like the steps that are recommended for debugging, and then I'll tell you how I debug, which is I'd love to hear from the person who knows what they're doing if this is like very bad practice. But so in that targets folder that gets made when you run make when you run the function that makes everything, it also saves this file meta, which stores the most recent error information. So you can go in there and look, or you can run tar meta, which can retrieve the error message for you. Most errors are in the behind the function, so that's like really the place to start, to when you're looking. You can pause the pipeline with browser, and then personal approaches. I kind of step through the functions as I normally would if I was bugging a function like outside of targets, and that basically I end up just loading, like making sure I up to the point, like the point where it'll work, and then loading those objects into my environment and then like stepping through the function. I don't know if that's a good way to do it, but the person who knows what you're doing, let us know. Let us know how you debug. I would love to learn more effective ways to debug for sure. And then my favorite, tar destroy. It just removes everything, and then you can start over. It removes the stuff that you've make, and so you can start again. So, and honestly, like my team, sometimes we cannot figure out what's going on, and we'll run tar destroy and then run it, and it will work. So that has seemed to work sometimes. Okay, so
Really quick.
Yes.
So I was the person that that uses targets pretty frequently. I also use browser a lot. I think that's a super helpful tool to help debug. I usually avoid using tar destroy, and as an alternate for that, I usually use tar invalidate, which basically will kind of like delete that object that's in your targets, or sorry, underscore targets folder.
Okay.
And so that's sort of another way to just quickly like invalidate a target, debug, and then rerun it.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing too, that we should maybe take that approach. Awesome. Thank you. Okay, so there's a lot of other other things that targets can do that I don't know how it works. So for example, targets can work in parallel processing. Apparently it actually set up things in parallel. If you are running things on a cluster, when you run, it should detect that, and it will set up your underscore target set file for parallel processing. I've never done this, but it sounds awesome. So if anyone wants to do a demo one day, I will totally be there. And then here are the resources that I found the most useful when I was collecting information for this. Okay, so we're gonna move to kind of a live demo of sorts now, and we're gonna using a data set, which is basically my listen history from Spotify for the last 2.5 weeks. So beware. And we are just kind of gonna walk through a pretty standard, simple workflow of loading data or inputs, cleaning them, summarizing, and then completions. So let me see. And
Tracey,
also, yes.
I have a quick question.
Yeah.
I was just wondering, it sounds like I assume the best approach for using targets would be to set up your project with targets in mind. Like when you begin work on this project, then you can set it up to use targets. Is it like super difficult to convert a project to use targets? So
I've only implemented this in one project so far, and we are doing the conversion strategy. And so I have nothing to compare it to be honest. It's the only thing I know. I think I actually think it's not that bad personally, because it's like we already have we already have the steps that we want to do. I think that where it's better to kind of start with targets in mind is like, we do have some stuff where we did some like really bad circular kind of stuff, and that's like not actually even reproducible in targets because it's bad practice. So I would say like it's like probably better to have it in mind, but like certainly like if you already have a project that's not and stuff done, that's not a reason to not convert it, I would say. Yeah. Yeah, our whole project that I'm working on, we're like converting a huge workflow into it, just like because we think it'll be better in terms of reproducibility down the line. So it's a trade-off we're making. Okay, so I just want to say, like, if anyone, so I'm the data we'll be using is from Last.fm. And if any of you have an account with them, you can actually download your listen history and do some stuff with that too. So we just wanted to maybe I'll put this in the chat should anyone want to do it. Okay, so does everyone have the everyone who wants to follow along have the repo forked and cloned, or do folks need help with that? Maybe if you need help, we could do a hand raise. Okay, I'm gonna keep going then. So okay, so the first part that I'm going to show you is you don't have to do, because like I've already made this repo for us to work with, but I did want to just show you kind of the first steps that you would be doing if you were just starting out completely fresh on your own. So the first step is just to create a project. So I'm just gonna do that really fast. So new project, targets, test, testing, public, we'll add a README. Even though I'm sure I don't really need to do this. Okay, create the repository. Okay. And then I'm gonna go ahead and clone it. And then let me see if I can easily switch. Okay. Okay. So, okay. Create a new project. Sorry, these are the steps that Danielle showed earlier, so a little repetitive here. I'll create the project.
Tracey, could you zoom in on our
Oh,
video screen a
yeah.
little bit?
Oh my gosh, sorry.
No,
Yes.
awesome, thank you.
Is that
That's better.
better?
Yeah, it's great.
Okay, cool. Okay. Okay, so we have our new repository. And I'm going to, so I would create a folder and I'm going to call it data. And then I would move some data in there. I'm just not going to do it for time here. I'm going to make a new folder called R. This is where I would store my functions, my script. And then I already have installed targets, so I have that. So then I would run, I'm going to run the library targets, and I'm going to run use target. And you can see that it created some stuff. Only this underscore targets.r file that has popped up here. And you can see it is to load the targets library. These are these options that I was talking about. I typically have just been using the packages. This is where you would the packages that you need to run your pipeline. But there are other things set up here. This is the source. This is what is sourcing your functions from your R folder. And this is the list where you would replace this target with your own targets. Okay, so that is all stuff that you don't have to do right now, because we're going to jump into the repo that's already populated. I'm going to switch to that one. This is hard, Danielle, the switching. Okay. Okay, so let me make that bigger. Whoa. Is that big enough for folks, or should we go bigger?
That's good, but one bigger is probably good. Nice if you can manage. I know it gets really crunched.
Yeah, no, let's do it. Did that even get bigger?
Yeah.
It did. Okay, cool. Okay. So, all right. So if we're in our repo here, question, do you guys have a folder called _targets? Okay, so this is where I would run tar destroy, but do we have to get rid of that folder, but do we have a suggestion for a better approach to kind of start clean? I think in this case, maybe it's okay, because I want you to like start totally clean. Okay, so I'm gonna recommend to you guys right now to run tar destroy, although know that this is maybe not best practice. And then so you run it and then you hit 1 to destroy it all. And that will just let us all start from with nothing here. Okay, so I've created this folder called before targets. This is something that like we've done in our workflow for our other project, and this is kind of where we keep code that is like not integrated into the targets framework yet, but we intend to. So I just kind of wanted to walk through the code that I have set up here. So let's run this line of code and load our library. So we'll just be using the tidyverse and the here package. And yeah, please, I'll try to keep my eye on the chat, but please raise your hand if you're having issues, or however, Danielle, you guys want to deal with that is great. Okay.
We'll monitor the chat and let you know if we need to pause.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you. Okay, so let's go ahead and read in our data. And I'm going to run tail data so we can just kind of look at it. And we can see that there are 4 columns here. We have the artist, the album, the title, and the date and time that I played this. But you'll notice it's in a character format, and this is not very helpful to us. So I have just a little chunk of code here that cleans this data. It removes NAs. It's going to convert the date time to a date time format, and I'm going to add the day of the week to it, and so you can run that and take a look at what it looks like. So the main difference here you can see is that this date and time column is now in a DTTM format. And I pulled out just the date and the day of the week. And I did notice that I was like, this is really weird. It's not Tuesday yet. Why is it saying that I'm listening to something tomorrow? And it's because it's like in UTC time zone. So I went ahead and I created a different version of this cleaning that converts it to Pacific time. So if I run that, run head data clean, we can see, okay, great. So this is in chronological order. So we can see that Monday is the most recent day that I was listening to it, and that's correct. So we're in the right time zone. Okay. So I wrote a little code here. I was interested in knowing a little bit about how much I'm listening to music each day. So I won't get too into detail about what these do, but you can feel free to like explore it when we're in groups or looking at it later. But I basically summarized by the date and the day of the week, the number of plays, the number of artists I'm listening to, and then I add a column that shows different weeks, basically. So we can take a look at that. So you can see that we have a table with some summary information here. And I decided to make a little plot here of my heat map. And let's see if it produced here. Okay, it's a little tiny, but just if you run that, maybe you can explore it a little bit. So I have just, this is the unique artist on the left. Sorry, it's not rendering very well here. And the number of song plays on the right, and the color intensity is showing the count. So, and then we have it day of the week, by week, and I made this on Monday, so all these blank areas are because they hadn't happened yet. Those dates had not happened yet. And yeah, so just like a way to kind of explore the data set. And then I did another one where I was curious about what my top artists were by week. And then I made this little figure here, which is it's not a nice figure. So this could be something to change in the future. So you can see, okay, so week 1, I had a lot of talking heads and Queen going on. And then you can see in week 2, there's less frequency with certain artists. And I dug into this a little bit, and it's because I was listening to more playlists as opposed to albums. So maybe there's something to explore there. And kind of similar information for week 3, although it was very incomplete information for week 3. Okay, so that's just to kind of prove that we have inputs, we have a pipeline that kind of does something. And then the idea next would be to really convert this into the targets framework. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to clear my environment right now. And just show you guys that I've already converted these into functions in this file. So these are the study functions that I have saved in this R folder, or this folder called R. So this is what's going to be sourced. And these are the things that are going to be commands in the targets file. So you can see that I've changed the data cleaning, this function that reads in the data and like does the cleaning that we looked at before. This is version 1. I have version 2 commented out here because we'll kind of walk through a change. And I've just basically converted each of those steps into a very simple function. Obviously, I think your workflows will probably require functions that have more than one input and stuff like that. So these are very simple, but hopefully it'll give us a sense, just a general sense of what targets can do. So I guess I'll just ask for you guys to trust me at this moment that these functions work. I mean, we'll find out together as we run them. But so if we move to the _targets file, this is where we actually will run the pipeline. So I've added this little script here, just a reminder of how the code to install targets, and then you would run this use targets script to create this file. Okay, so I have just added the so you can actually add libraries packages outside of here. You can add packages outside of here or in this option set. They both work. I've read there are efficiency gains if you do it inside the option set. So we actually don't do that for the study. I'm not sure why, but so I did it in the option set here. And then this stuff is the only thing I so far is this. This is all stuff that targets calculated. And then this is like the main area where we've created our targets. So just walking through each target is. Remember, each target is a step. So our first target is going to be reading in the data. Actually creating a name, so I should change that. This is creating a file name. So we're calling it file. The command, what we're telling it to run is this file creates a file path. I'm using
Tracey, we lost your audio. Just the last like 10 seconds or so. Still can't hear you.
I don't know if she can hear us.
Oh, maybe she lost all audio.
Let
Uh-oh.
me see if I message. I just DM'd her. We'll see if she sees it.
We write out like a little message.
She-
We cannot hear
Oh,
you.
maybe she's reading it now.
Can you hear us, Tracey? Can...
Can you hear us now? Oh, you can't say something again?
Oh, shoot. Can you hear me
Oh.
now?
Yeah, you're good now.
Now we can.
Oh, okay. My headphones aren't working. Classic. Okay. Sorry. How long was that going on for?
Like 2 minutes, maybe.
Okay. Shoot. Okay. Well, let's see.
We if you scroll, I think you were just finishing up talking about like the importing the data portion, the reading in the data.
This target?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, cool. Sorry guys. Sorry.
No, you're good.
It's like my first Zoom. Okay. Okay, so let's look at this target. So you can go back to this study functions file and find the function that we're using, the user defined function. This is the clean data function. So you can look at this to see what the function is doing, what the input is, what the output is. I was saying that I always like to, I don't think you have to do this, but I always like to have the object that I want returned at the end so that it's like very explicit to me what I'm getting out of it. So in this target, we're naming it data. So the output of that object is going to be called data. And the command, or what I'm telling target to run, is the clean data user-defined function on file, which we've created in this previous target. Each of these targets is essentially just each of these steps that we walked through. It's just each of these steps in the code pre-targets converted into a target using a user-defined function from the study functions. Okay, so let's run some of those helpful functions for exploring our pipeline. Okay, so let's start with sorry. Okay, let's start with tar manifest. So this is what we were talking about earlier, where it's going to return kind of the name of each part of your pipeline, each target, and the command that we're calling for each target. So this, and it is in order of how it's going to be run. This looks reasonable to me. We're creating the file name. We're going to read in the data and clean it. Then we're going to do these, we're going to make these processed summarize data frames, and then we're gonna make some figures. So that seems good. So then let's try tar-viz network. And you should get a figure of your pipeline. And this was like a little unintuitive to me at first, because basically clean data is a function, and the file is like going, it's like the file is being read into the clean data function, and it's like creating this data. So this wasn't so intuitive to me, but actually I think what it is that file and the clean data function are needed to create data. So it actually does, like, it makes sense. And you can see that these are all outdated right now. We haven't run anything. But so yeah, good practice is to explore this and make sure things are connected in the way that you expect or you would want them to. Okay, so let's go ahead and just run the pipeline. So we're gonna run tar make. Hopefully there won't be any errors. Okay, and you can see in this output as it's running, you can kind of like watch it. So you can, as it goes step by step, which is kind of nice. You can see how much time is being spent. So, okay, so then we've run it. And so as you can see, there's nothing in our environment. It's run, but we have nothing to look at right now. So let's go ahead and look at some of the outputs. So if you go back here, so when we ran tar make, it created this underscore targets folder. And I remember we talked about that, like there's some meta information saved in here, good for debugging, perhaps if you're doing it the right way. If we go in the objects folder, these are all the objects that we created when we ran tar make. So if we wanted to, for example, let's take a look at, we'll do tar read, and let's do play artist df, and it won't auto populate for you because it is not in your environment. So that's, oops, see, I spelled this wrong. Okay, tar read, yes, I did, plays artist df. Okay, so you can see that like it's bringing it into your console to see it, but it still didn't load it. It didn't load it in your environment. So if we wanted to load it, we would just do tar load plays artist df. And now it's in your environment, and you can kind of like use it as you normally would any object that is in your environment. Okay, I want to be cognizant about time. We're almost done with this. Sorry, people. So let's go through what it looks like when you make a change. So let's go back to the study functions. And yeah, like I said, this data cleaning function it's not actually good enough, because it doesn't change the date and time to Pacific time, which we want. So you could just edit this, just for time's sake. I just copied the second version over. So if you want to comment the old one out and make this one the version that we use, so they're the same name, clean data, and save it. We go back to targets. We can run tar outdated. And we can see that basically everything is outdated at this point, because that really upstream function is now updated. So we can do tar viz network again. And we can see that all of these things are outdated. We can run tar make again, and it's going to rerun the pipeline, and it's going to skip. Oh my gosh. Sorry, folks. I have an error in here, obviously. we could try to debug it together. Last error, no applicable method for filter applied to the function. Okay.
I think it might be in the last function you have in study functions. I noticed there's a comment that says error example. That might possibly should have been commented out.
Oh my gosh, where is it? Sorry.
Yeah, that right there. Error example. Is that what's causing it? It's still, yeah, right there.
Oh. Could be, although it did work before. Let's try commenting that out.
You also missed the last little curly bracket at the end of that functions, I think. Yeah, scroll down a little bit. Oh, maybe never mind.
Okay. Error in target data. Let me try again. I think that's gonna fix it. Okay, I have to debug that. Sorry, I don't want to take too much time doing that, but maybe I'll do it when we're in breakout groups. I have another way, another change we can make. So if we go back to, oh wait, sorry. If we go back to using our first version for now, save that. If we go to, okay, plot heat map, let's just say I want to just change the color of my heat map to blue. I'm just switching these two things out. I'm going to hit save, come back over. Let's do, I'm actually going to do tar manifest. That looks good. I'm going to do tar viz network. Oh, wow. Okay, great. So we also have error here. That's good to know. We have error, we have out of date stuff. Okay, so I'm going to run tar make again. Okay, yeah, I did something wrong in that. Okay, I have to fix that function. Okay, so that seemed to work. We do tar, sorry, tar viz network. Everything's up to date and no errors, so that's good. And we can do tar read, and let's just see what that, I think it was listening heat map. Yeah, okay, so we've just changed the color here. Okay, so that is that's like, that is how this works. And we have about 25 minutes left. So I was thinking, but I want this to be useful for all of you guys. So I was thinking that if we wanted, we could split up into some breakout groups, and folks can either change a function, make changes to some of the targets that are already in there, or try to create a new target and kind of explore whatever seems fun to explore. Another option is we could do this error together. I think I just need to fix the function. But it's a good lesson that errors are often in user-defined functions. So I'll turn it back to Danielle and Co.
Yeah, thanks, Tracey.
Are there any questions, I guess?
Yeah, good point. We can pause here if there's questions before splitting up, maybe.
I have a question.
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Go ahead.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm Tanya. Hello. I have not used targets, or I've come up with pipelines for research, but just made a diagram in PowerPoint and stuck it on my README, and that was my way of tracking which things make what. So this is a nice way to kind of formalize that more and have things run automatically, which is cool. So I was wondering if you wanted to maybe save the intermediate steps or even the end steps as files, like you want to save your figure to a PNG, or you want to save your intermediate to a CSV file that's like in the process data folder. Can those be outputs that can then be read in as inputs to the next step?
Yes, totally. You can do that. And actually, I was just gonna share this repo with you. You can totally do that. And actually, if you do, there's I believe it's like it's called a 4-minute intro, or get started with targets in 4 minutes or something. It's a Vimeo video, which I've linked to in the presentation. That's actually the example that they do, is they do like I'm pretty sure it's in there. They like create a CSV, save it, and then pull it back in, so that they like totally do that workflow. And I was just going to show that this is the project that I'm working in, where we use the targets workflow. And so actually all of these, we basically, or many of these, we are within these targets, yes. So we've actually separated the process of like making something and then saving it externally. But so we have these saved targets where we save these CSVs, and then I don't think we pull them back in to use them, but you can do that, and that example will show you how to do that. But that Vimeo video.
Cool, thanks.
I have a question, Tracey. I feel like you probably mentioned this in the slides, but like, just so I understand better, when you're working with this targets workflow and you're like going to pass the repository along to a colleague, is the _targets.r like file with all of like the list of targets, is that what they're actually running like on their own like local machine to reproduce everything? They're not necessarily like going through and like that loads all the functions for you, right? And then all the outputs then are regenerated for them, and they can make updates, and those targets will be updated when they pass it back to you, type thing. That's like the main file. Okay.
Yeah, so it works like, I mean, so the repo kind of works like any other repo if you're doing, if you're like collaborating through GitHub. And so people are going to be, so you're just like pushing and pulling, and people are running that targets file. And the objects will be, this is why you guys had objects when you forked, because I like was playing with it, I guess, and didn't clear it before sending. So like those, if you pull it, like you'll get the most recent objects that are in there as well.
Gotcha. Also, looks like
oh, someone has an
the
answer.
The error was solved.
Thank you. I will fix that. And
amazing.
Folks, feel free. I recommend you do fix it if you want to get like accurate results for my listens by day of week, but
We do.
Tracey, I also have a question about like the workflow, just to kind of solidify all what you've said in terms of, so, and while you're running like this demo, you showed the workflow without the target. So it's basically, okay, we have our data, figure out what we want to do, how we want to clean it, and then you create these functions, right? And write the script with the functions. And then you run the use target to create that _target.r file.
Mhm.
And that creates the file based on whatever's in your R folder.
So it doesn't actually make anything based on what's in your R folder. It's just going to, it like makes that _targets R file, and it will source that R folder. So I don't even think, you don't technically need to have that folder in there when you run it. You can just like run, you could just make the project and run use targets, and it will like populate that _R file. And then you can like make your R folder and like add your functions in it. So it's not doing anything special based on what's in your R folder, but it will source it when it's running, when you run. Yeah.
Okay, so it knows which command to run. So, but then basically you run the lines like target and define your target with whatever you want it to be.
Yeah, so you don't have to run it, but you do have to fill in that list with your own targets.
Okay. And then the make target function will run everything to create the objects and like test each
Right.
of your.
Right.
Okay.
And so, and I think when you're doing like the Viz network manifest, it is looking at that point, it is looking at your sourced files, your source functions and stuff like that. Because it hasn't actually like run anything yet. Sorry, I'm forgetting the name of the expert we have on here, but I'm trying to remember if you can run individual targets without running the whole RMake function. I can't remember.
Sorry, I didn't even introduce myself. My name's Almira, she, her pronouns. You can run tar_make and then the name of your target. If that's what you're asking. So yeah, you would just do like, in this case, tar_make and then data or, the heat map or whatever. And you could just make that. Okay.
Cool. I think that's another way folks on my team might be debugging a bit, is like they will run, which I think like you could just run all the working parts kind of like the way that they tell you to do it by the book. Or I think something we've done is we've stepped through individual targets and then loaded them and then like played with the functions.
I have another question, Tracy. The R folder where your functions have to be,
yeah,
do they all have to be in the same R file, or can you have multiple R files?
You can have multiple. Yeah, you can have multiple, and I think technically it doesn't even need to be called R, but I think you might have to do something if you want to call it if you want to call that like main folder something different, you might have to do something special. So I just don't play with it, but I'll just show again. This is the repo for my project, and you can see that we're in the R folder, but we have like several folders for our functions, and I think we have several files within those. So it's going to just look at all of them.
I have another question. I don't want to take up too much airspace. Does anyone else have questions that they want to bring up or comments? Okay. I don't know like how to formally phrase this question, but like this whole workflow, I'm curious if in the research that you did, like learning how to use the targets package and all the readings that you were like looking around in, if you saw any reference to like using targets in conjunction with Shiny and building Shiny apps and dashboards, because it feels like the workflow feels kind of similar to like functionalizing components of Shiny apps. And I don't know like how that would work in practice, but it just like seems so similar in some ways. And I like wonder if there's a way of using it to make that like workflow better.
Yeah, I did not see anything with Shiny. I did see stuff with Markdown though.
Oh.
And that was in, I think I shared this, there's like one gentleman who seems to be like, I don't know if it's his package but he like has made a lot of the materials and has done a bunch of tutorials that there are videos for, and I linked at least to one in the presentation that we'll send out, and he talks about using Markdown with it, but he like his philosophy is that, I hope I'm representing this correctly, is that like Markdown is really good for kind of showing summarizations and communicating results, but it's not really good. It's not great for like running workflows. So his you can use the targets framework with Markdown. I think it's like the Markdown would be like in your targets kind of like another thing in your targets world here. And he has examples for that. But I haven't seen anything with Shiny.
Okay. That's cool though about our Markdown, because you're right, it's not great for running any sort of analytical pipelines as a whole, but it is really great for, sharing stuff.
Totally. So it looks like he had an example of kind of like a workflow where you would have like this kind of like final like report output thing, and then that's reproducible and like has all the benefits of using targets. So yeah.
Cool. Thanks.
This made me think of another question, or maybe like kind of just to get the conversation, like preparing for this, or also what you've used about target. Like, I'm sure it's very helpful, and some people are really stoked about it, but I'm also sure that some people are not that like, what's the feeling, or what's the community like? What do the people that support target are excited about, and what are the kind of the downfalls or the pitfalls of using these kind of tools?
I guess I'll just like answer anecdotally, because I don't know broadly, but I think I think the pros are just like the reproducibility, the promise of reproducibility is huge. And the time saving also of being able to like skip targets, I think is a big plus. And just but I think people I think what people really, the people I've talked to have talked about is the reproducibility part. And like feeling confident that things are up to date. And then I feel like some of the cons maybe it's just that like I do feel like there's a little bit of a learning curve at the beginning. It's not as intuitive as just kind of like writing, tidyverse language is great. It's like really accessible. So like converting everything to functions, I think it might be just like for some people it's just like a layer that they don't necessarily want to do. It's a bit more time. And the debugging, I think the debugging is not super fun. But I think in my experience with the one project that I've been using it on, it's been totally worth it. And like I do think that learning curve, like that initial learning curve to get to like where I am, where it's like I am by no means an expert, clearly, but I can use it. And there are huge benefits to this, and that like I'm not going to have to write that insane README again for this project. We're just going to know that it all works. So
yeah, totally. And I don't know, we've been talking about documentation a lot and the time you spend in documenting things, so it's just kind of cool to know that there's tools that you can like apply. And it's the learning curve is high, but then once you start understanding how to think about your projects, maybe it eases things in the future.
Yeah, and it's like, and I'm saving a lot of my future time by making it so clean and organized. So yeah, and like no one likes that feeling if you discover an error in something that like you've done. It's I'll do almost anything to prevent that.
We have a question in the chat from JD. I hope I'm saying that right. Can you please talk about the run.sh file?
I can't. I'm sorry. I don't know what that is. Anyone out there? No, I'll make a note to like actually look into what that is, and maybe when we send out the presentation, I'll try to add some information about that.
Any other questions? We have about 10 minutes left. There's been some good discussion, question and answer. We could keep that going if there's any lingering cues.
Yeah, I have a question. Are you like, now that you've gotten the hang of targets, are you like implementing this in, or wanting to implement this in like a ton of stuff that you do, or just like larger projects? Sort of what's the scale that you're working with?
I would say anything that is going to be like a final deliverable, whether that's like a report or I do a lot of like manuscript writing, and for academic journals. So certainly for like anything like that, where reproducibility is like so important. Yes, I want to use it for all of them. But then also, like, I will say, even in that project I was talking about where we're using it heavily, we do have components of it that we're not actually sure that will convert into targets, like more exploratory stuff where we're just kind of like poking around. Yeah, so I think we've kind of decided that we're not going to change those things. If it's not needed for the analysis, like we're not changing it to targets, and we're going to keep those saved in our kind of like pre-targets folder. So they'll be there, they're just not going to be in the targets framework, but like anything needed for the analysis top to bottom will be in there. Yeah, I think so. Yeah, anything that has a product at the end, I want to keep using it.
Anything else?
Oh, I
This is-
was just looking at the shell script, and it looks like it's a way you can just you can run the shell script in the command line, and it'll run this sort of run.r function, which is basically just make tar make, and it runs it as in the background, so it doesn't like clog up your console doing it. So you can keep working, and it just sort of runs in the background. I think that's what it's for.
Thank you.
Great to know. Well, this is really informative. I think this was a productive discussion at the end, so we didn't get to our breakout rooms, but that's totally fine. I think we learned a lot, and Tracey, you gave us some really great examples. I spent hours at work today changing one thing and then rerunning a model, and so this was very inspiring to me for my future workflows. So I really appreciate you putting this together for us.
No problem. Sorry about the audio.
No worries.
Yeah, it all worked out. It was great. Thank you so much for this introduction to targets.
If anyone wants to do one with parallel processing, I'll be there.
Well, we'll hang on for a few more minutes, but thank you all so much for coming, and stay tuned for our next workshop. We'll send the slides that Tracey presented and the recording out to you all after.
Thanks, everyone.
For coming.
Bye, good to see you guys.
Great to see you, Aki.
Wow, sorry.
Yay!
I
No,
saw
what are you
something
sorry about?
stopping, but I was like, no one's
was
stopping me, but
perfect.
it just was like they just completely stopped working. I could hear.
Wait, stop recording, Sam.
Oh, sorry.